So it's time to talk Wales once again. We're getting very close to this proposed optimal solution. We pretty much know what's going to happen, and that is they're going to say we want the professional game to go to 2 teams like it is in Scotland. And then what happens to the other 4? That is the big question, of course, but it looks like it's going to go to 2 teams with a 6-week consultation period. And with most managements in any company, that pretty much means it's going to happen, and let's have 6 weeks for you to get used to it and maybe tweak it a bit to say we're listening to you, but really it's probably just going to be what they said in the first place. So then the headline would be, who goes? Which of the 4 teams goes? And I think it will be all of them. I think the only way they can do this is to say all 4 teams, they drop down to the 2nd tier, the Super Rugby Cymru, and they play there, although Connecticut, I think, are in the league below that, so maybe they bump them up, I don't know. But Cardiff, Swansea, Newport, in name, they only exist in that 2nd tier, and the top tier is 2 new teams. I just see it being far too messy, them doing it any other way, saying, okay, it is Connecticut, Scarlets, and it is Cardiff, you're the only 2 that are remaining. You can't really do that, I don't think. It would just be too fraught with problems. You just say, right, we have a West and we have an East, and that is it. How do you divide up West and East? Of course, that's tricky, and people argue Swansea's not in West and all this sort of thing. But I think you have 2 new entities, one of them in the East, based at the Principality Stadium. I think that would make sense, and they try and fill it up as much as possible. And one based in the West at either the Parky Scarlets or this new ground they're going to be building in Swansea. Something like that. I think they're going to be called something different. Pop comments below what you think that's going to be. But yeah, that's how I think it's going to go. And also at this point, please do forgive me, Welsh fans, because I am an Englishman commenting on this, and it is obviously very sensitive stuff, but I'm trying to understand it, trying to get involved, because I want big games between England and Wales. I want Wales to be very strong as possible. The question is 2 teams the strongest way to go? Now, whatever they do, people are going to be upset. Now, let's look at the positives. Maybe if it goes to 2 teams, East and West, what's it going to be? Well, it's going to be bigger playing staff, 50 players roughly each, bigger budgets, 7.8 million is the term being thrown around. Each of those 2 teams has an elite men's team and an elite women's team, and it looks like the academies would just be one academy controlled by Wales, so they're not kind of competing against each other, and they decide who flows into which team, and the WRU takes control a lot more, and they're feeding through players to help the national team, all looking to help the national team. Will that make Wales a stronger national team? That is the question. Well, each individual team will be stronger. I'm pretty sure that will be the case. Better funded, more players. They should be able to compete, better on that stage in the URC, in the Champions Cup, etc. I think that would happen. The question is, would it make Wales stronger? Well, actually going to 2 teams, even though they're bigger squads, it's less players, and picking from 2 teams isn't the best. Now, Scotland do it, yes, but they also pick from everywhere else as well, and they've got no qualms about picking anyone who's Scottish qualified. So will Wales have to do that? Will they say we pick from these 2 teams, but we can pick from anyone as well? I don't think they will, actually. I think they'll try to be more protective, as they have been doing. And of course, if there's less spots for players in Wales, more players are going to move over the bridge to England, to other places. That's just going to happen. You're not going to expect those players who don't get a spot in East and West to drop down to the 2nd tier, to the Super Rugby level, Cymru, and be happy there. No, because they're not all fully professional. They're not paid anywhere near what they are in the URC at the moment. They're going to move. So the players currently in Wales that don't get contracts with these new teams are just going to leave. They're not going to all drop down to the next tier and make that even stronger. So I think that is something to say. They're going to have to bank on these 2 teams being so much significantly stronger, and the fact you're only drawing from 2 teams, meaning the coordination is better, that gives you a better Welsh team. So there is a possible upside to this, and of course saving money is an upside as well. It needs to be sustainable. So if you look at the glass half full, maybe it could help the Welsh national team. Maybe it will make those 2 teams stronger and do better in the URC and the Champions Cup. That could happen. We'll have a load of Welsh fans without any teams. Either they drop down to Super Rugby Cymru and support their team there, which I'm sure the WRU will want them to do, and then go to those big new East versus West clubs, or whatever they're called. Will that happen? Well, to a degree, I think yes, it will. Maybe some people will be happy going and watching their town that they grew up watching, that their parents grew up watching at a slightly lower level, and then they go to a professional game, which they won't have that affinity to yet. But of course, if it keeps going, maybe the younger generation will develop that affinity to that East and West team. It could happen. In the short term, it will probably feel fairly soulless trying to support this new team that you don't really have an affinity to, and it's combining, players from formerly different regions that you were rivals to. So it's going to be tricky to start with, but obviously they're going to hope it builds up. And of course, people do want to watch the best rugby possible. They want to watch their Welsh national hero. So I'm sure that draw will be there eventually to go and watch the East versus West teams. But the question is, will they get big enough crowds to justify it if they, say, play some or all of their games at the Principality for that East team? Or will you get people moving away over the bridge and supporting Bristol, Bath, Gloucester, teams like that, saying, we've had it with professional rugby in Wales, yes, we'll support our local team, we'll support Cardiff in Super Rugby Cymru, but we're going to go across and support Bath because that is the top level that we want to support in the club game, for example? Or will people just leave rugby and stop supporting it and going and watching other things like football? But there also is a chance that maybe a team like the Scarlets, who have just got new investors, look at this and go, we're not accepting losing our brand and dropping down into the next level. We're going to take our team and go somewhere else, namely across the bridge and play in the Premiership, say, if they let them. Obviously the Premiership's a lot smaller now, only 10 teams. They could probably do with 2 new teams, and maybe they would accept the Scarlets and all their fans and history that went with it. It's not too far to travel, so maybe they come into the Premiership. Maybe the region that is geographically closest, Newport, Gwent, the Dragons, they go across to the Premiership, and you have Scarlets and Dragons, say, in the Premiership as well. And maybe that's actually a bit of a win in some ways for the WRU, because they get them off their books and they still have those professional players, and then they support the East and West. I don't know, it's all a bit of a mess. Now, whatever happens, pretty much everyone loses in the short term at least. If it turns out in 5-10 years' time it was the right decision and Wales are doing better and the 2 new clubs are doing better in the URC and the Champions Cup, maybe then you say, okay, it was worth the pain, but it's going to be a lot of pain. But please let me know what your solutions would be, because something is going to happen and needs to happen. It looks like it's going to be 2 clubs. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be painful. Is it the right call? Those are my thoughts on it. Please let me know what you think. Do educate me as an Englishman. Things I've missed out, because I'd love to learn off you as well. But pop all the comments down below, and I'll catch you next time.